Hi, I'm Ewan. So today I'd like to present my project proposal for 15300. So my project is called Using Parallel Hierarchical Clustering to Detect Social Circles. As for the advisor I'm working with, unfortunately, I do not have like an advisor right now um, my because I contacted a PhD student, but he's like not really willing to advise me because his research area is very different from is very different from the one that I plan to work on. He was working on reinforcement learning and feel like beginners shouldn't start their research with reinforcement learning. And for another professor I contacted, she replied after a week saying that she would be away from CMU from November and December, so she doesn't think that the communication would be effective using only email. Therefore, she also doesn't want to advise me. So I'm still currently looking for professors. Um, okay. So first of all, in my research, the social circles are presented by something called ego networks. To briefly explain what is ego network, we can look at the graph here. So as we can see, ego network is like a graph that has like an ego node, which is like the focus node. And then it also has like some neighbors that are connected to it by edges. Usually we use ego network to represent social circles because, for example, ego can be like the person we start from or we start looking at, and then the neighbors could be all his friends on, for example, on Facebook or Twitter, and then like the edges connecting the person, like the ego, with its neighbors is like an edge that represents the similarities between the two nodes. For example, they might come from the same school, they might come from the same family, etc., etc. So these edges represents their similarities, and usually we use like a ego network to depict the person's, for example, Facebook friend circle, and our goal is to study and identify this circle. So our the main goal of my research is not try to find a way to detect ego networks, because there's a lot of research ongoing or have previously completed about detecting social circles in ego networks. But more, I want to improve on the time complexity of solving this problem, because since we're dealing with an era with like big data, we want to solve this problem so that in the case of when we're dealing with like large data sets, we're still able to solve this problem in reasonable time. So my goal is to create some parallel hierarchical clustering algorithm and test them data like Facebook or Twitter networks. So why particularly I'm using hierarchical clustering algorithm? That's because of the nature of the hierarchical clustering algorithm. It's very nice for detecting the underlying like structures and groups like in a network compared to some other algorithms, for example, like k-means, because it's not just gonna look at the like distance between the nodes. It's also gonna look at like the structure of the nodes. So in terms of methodology, there are two main things I would do. Like the first, I would implement hierarchical clustering algorithm with different linkage. For example, simple linkage, double linkage, average linkage, complete linkage, and I would like try and see like which one works the best in parallel situation, because I want to run the algorithm in parallel. And I would also implement the version without parallelism so that I can compare these two and see like how this algorithm performs in parallel structure. And other than that, something I would do is to move from unsupervised learning to semi-supervised learning. So unsupervised learning means that the labels are not really something that we use to train. So for example, we have this network here, and we don't look at each node's labels. We only look at the weights of the edges, and we try to look for like some substructures in that graph. But with semi-supervised learning, we're not only looking at the structure, we're not only doing clustering, but also we're looking at the labels. For example, we know that this label represents friends under the same advisor. So we use that information. We use the label information. We as well use the edge weights, and we kind of like this like a propagation to find more nodes that are that belongs to this circle. So the particular function, the particular algorithm I would using is called harmonic functions, which is very similar like to the PageRank algorithm proposed by Google. So basically, it's like doing like a label propagation to propagate the probabilities of being in like a certain circle. So there are a couple of like related work on this area by researchers at Stanford and UIUC. I think they're really nice papers, and they can definitely help me for my research because they definitely provide like reference to me, and I can also see like what are like, for example, the standardization and also regularization methods using the research, and then try to learn from them. So as for the importance of my research, so there are currently two fields that my research can apply to. First, it could help to identify social circles of terrorists on Facebook, because like we know that a lot of terrorists use Facebook for communication, and since they're terrorists, they won't like open a group saying that, oh, this is group for terrorists. Moreover, the things would be more secret. So basically, we want to see their connections and see like the probability of a person being a terrorist based on its connections to multiple other terrorists. And this could definitely help us in international securities issue. And other than that, it would be helpful for marketing and advertising, because in a lot of the situations when we're dealing with like large scale advertising, we want to target to a certain client group. And to make that process like more efficient, we want to come up with some time consuming algorithm that can make decisions very quickly, so that we can make the like most right solution, or we can make the best time solution. Because like as we can see from the election, like Donald Trump used some big data tools to analyze like people on Facebook and Twitter, and like post ads on social media that targets certain like client groups, and this proved to be like a really helpful strategy. So I feel like this can help us in the future in also like marketing and advertising related area.